When people hear buttonholes, they always think of garment sewing, and maybe they never want to make a buttonhole in their life. But I am here to prove to you buttonholes can be used in a lot more fun way. And one of the ways here is featured in our Pfaff Stitching Cosmos online course. When we feature buttonholes, we do it by weaving ribbon through it. So I'm going to show you buttonholes next on the Pfaff Quilt Ambition 630 sewing machine. But before I do, I want to show you when I was making this quilt block and filming this particular lesson, it was a Sunday afternoon and I wanted a yellow ribbon, but I did not have a ribbon that was to the size of my liking. So I took a smaller ribbon, sewed two of them together with a decorative stitch, and then created the width that I needed. And I always remember that when I look at this block of how I was able to be a little bit more creative. This is the circular sewing attachment, but there's so many things that you can do. Plus, we're going to be talking about sewing on buttons. We do that with some fun tassels. So there are links below this YouTube video. You can check out the online course if you want to learn more about your machine and other ways that you can use it other than just what you think you can use it. We feature 25 different sewing techniques and 18 presser feet. So on the Pfaff machine, you will find that there are tons of buttonhole styles. So depending on your fabric or the look that you're going for, we're going to just go ahead and do one of the basic ones. We are going to be using your buttonhole foot number 5. And the way I'm holding it is the way you need to get used to seeing it, because it is going to go on the machine and completely stick way out the back side. But before I put it on the machine, part of this foot is to allow you to take your button, or in the case of that block I just showed you, the ribbon, and lay it in this opening. And that's what I did. I put my ribbon here and I knew exactly or my machine knew exactly what size I wanted the buttonhole to be. But you put your button in the back, leave it in there, and then as we put it on the machine, and let's go ahead and pick, I'm going to go ahead and pick stitch number 33. That's going to be down here as, not the 32 is the skinny one, 33 is like a standard size. Even tells me foot number 5. It recommends some stabilizer. Oh yes, and don't forget, you got to take off the IDT. Make sure that that's not engaged. There's no place on a buttonhole for that. And sometimes I forget to, because it's kind of right behind the foot and I don't always see it. But if you have trouble putting this foot on, it might be because this unit is still engaged. So take that off. Look at the tension. It says 3.6. So the machine is smart enough to know that when you are stitching something this close together, like a satin stitch in the shape of a buttonhole, we want those stitches to kind of pull to the back side. And when they do, it's going to look like a prettier, more rounded buttonhole and stitch. So by loosening the top tension for us, that makes the bobbin tension tighter and it will pull the stitches to the back side where we want them. Stitch length might be determined by how thick of thread you are using. Most of the time, just leave it at those settings and do a test buttonhole and see how it looks. There's also one little picture in here for stabilizer. If I didn't already mention that, that helps give your buttonhole something to grip onto. So we're going to get started. I've attached the foot and let's stitch out a buttonhole. There's one last thing to do before we stitch, is to go behind the needle threader. There is a lever up and kind of inside the machine that you're going to pull straight down. It even has a picture of a buttonhole on it. So that silver little paddle is what is positioned to help measure that button that's in the back. Now, speaking of back, your buttonholes are going to start here and they're going to go away from you and stitch. So your starting point should be noted on your fabric. You can do a fabric marker and then you can position the needle to be right over one of those starting points. For your first buttonhole, you're probably going to notice the needle thread is going to be above the foot and kind of hanging out. So I like to just hold on to it. Once we do one buttonhole, this thread will go down and underneath the foot. So this is only a first time thing. I don't take the time to try to feed it down that little hole. That's kind of, well, it's hard. So I'm just going to go ahead, lower the presser foot down. This is a great place to use your start-stop button. If you want to slow it down just a little bit, the little speed control right here can assist. You'll first notice that it will stitch straight back. Now if you want to, you can always trim off this little thread so you don't have to hold it anymore. As it stitches straight back, the little guide right here is sensing how big that button is in the back, which is awesome. And I love the fact that when it stitches straight back again for that second leg, both those satin stitches are going to look identical because they're both stitched in the same direction. Notice that it locks it off and cuts the thread when the buttonhole is done. Now, after testing it and seeing if it is the right length to do the next buttonhole, just go ahead, set the machine where you want it to start, push that start-stop button, and let it stitch out again. Whether you need to do 2 or 200, this machine can do buttonholes all day long. I hope you'll try out some of the other buttonhole styles. There's keyhole styles. There's buttonhole number 38 that can be used for a stretchier fabric. You're going to do it the same exact way every single time.